Hello and welcome to this video where we're going to discuss campaign and pretty much how to survive it with any class, any character, and what to do, what not to do, in my opinion. Now, first, defenses are pretty awful early on. You want to take damage straight up, and you want to actually take resistances and movement speed over pretty much any other attribute on your gear. Even if you sacrifice some defense, life is good, but resistances and the movement speed is actually better than life, because early on you're only going to get small amounts of life on your gear. So if you have to choose between, say, 20 life at like level 10 or 10 res, unless you somehow are capped at level 10, take that res. Now if we have a look at the passive trees, I'm obviously in endgame, so this is slightly different from my character, but taking nodes such as either the attribute nodes, don't do that, taking the armor, stun threshold types, or mana regen, movement speed, evasion rating, don't do that. That is mid-maxing minimum act 4, 5, even endgame. Take the damage. Over here we got melee. Over here we got some melee or spell damage, depending on which sorcerer you are. Here you got straight up spell damage, and straight up here to the attack, and then the prod damage for the ranger. They're your first nodes for any class, any character, any build, because the bosses have way more HP than you can do if you just go like sideways here, sideways there. I've run the campaign for almost 100 hours now. Pretty much the whole time I've been playing PoE 2 has been doing the campaign, trying different things. I've got a class and sent it sideways over here to try to change up the style and everything. And the amount of damage you lose if you don't take these damage nodes straight up will get you killed, or make you run around doing mechanics, and you'll eventually die because you don't do enough damage and you don't get flash charges back. I worked it out with 46% recovery increase. It took me 28 kills to regain 1 charge on my flask. So we extrapolate that out. That's about 50 kills that you're potentially going to need of just regular trash. The higher up the monster, the more charge points, we'll say, it's worth. So another thing, if you are doing any sort of build, if we go to our skills, we'll pick one. Say this, it converts fizz to lightning. Do physical damage. Don't worry about the lightning or anything like that. Focus on physical, because you boost the physical, 40% of that becomes lightning, and then once you're like 20, 30 level, you'll start getting into the area of the tree which has the extra damage boosts and everything. Some down here like lightning. The only thing is, if you're warrior, you can quite early hit some fire damage, and then down here some more ignite. You'll still be fairly obviously leveled up by that point, but ignite and stuff, getting that magnitude or the strength of your ignite or whatever you're putting on the enemy is the key. Doesn't matter whether it goes for 5 seconds, 50 seconds. If you have a very small damage on it, then it's just going to go poo. If you have a massive magnitude boost, which It can be a little hard, but if you just take all the magnified, as you can see here, 30% increased magnitude of ailments you inflict. Now, that then multiplies, increases plus. So that pluses to other multipliers, and you end up with big numbers through your skills. Your tree is pretty much helping your skills. So, say you're playing a, not Marauder, Mercenary. Armor evasion is all through this tree. Down here you get to put a little extra armor on. I wouldn't be going and trying to put a bunch of ES gear on a mercenary. The ways to actually increase that aren't here on this tree. Well, this part of the tree. The ES stuff is up here. So unless you know what you're doing, or you're following a build that specifically has been designed for you to level and play a cross-class build, stick to where you are on the tree for gear-wise, because you can always go to another type later when you got the gold, when you got the passives, to reroute and get the damage and pick up what you lose. The only thing I would say is, if you are doing, say, either Ranger or Merc, there is similar nodes between the two, so you can head up here, through here, and end up over here quite easily. Not so much the Monk. The Monk you can start heading down over here, but there are limitations in PoE2 to where you can go early. Obviously late you can spend all the gold you want, all the currency you want on gear to make it able for you to go, say, from Mercenary all the way up to the Lightning Pure Power node all the way up here, if you chose to. But straight damage, don't worry about anything else. A bit of recovery, flash recovery would be helpful as well. If you don't have to go out of your way to get it, any sort of flash recovery, because the flash for a lot of bosses, if you get hit, make mistakes or whatever, or if you're slightly under leveled for the area, your flash will run out really quick, and because you'll have to if you're not using a flask that can actually heal you, so I have 1600, it does 1435. So if I was pretty much out of life, I wouldn't be able to recharge fully. So it would actually take me 1 and a bit to get full life if I just use flask. So have a flask that is suitable, and then use your flask to stay healed. And make sure you, whenever you get down, you see a little line where it is. Make sure it's 3/4 to full when you push it. Else, more than likely, by the time you're healed, you're already like half life. And you're thinking, oh, I just pushed heal. But you're going to end up dead. Another thing, don't worry about the niche sort of nodes along the way. So one would be, I think it's over here. Where's that instant leech? There's an instant leech there. Niche nodes like this, unless you specifically have a way to maximize this, piling from here or here and just heading straight for this, going through regen, endurance charges, we got stun threshold, like none of this helps. Take this after, like Act 5, 6, endgame, then reroute your tree to pick up some of this stuff. Because you got to take increase amount, and then leech is instant. But if you don't have a way to actually leech sufficient amount, then you won't do anything good, because you're going to then not be able to kill the boss. You might be able to stay alive longer, but you're still not going to be able to beat the boss. So, just keep it simple. Go damage, not that one. Damage, 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 damage. And then you could drop down here, pick up some armor, but you've already picked up all these nodes of damage. So then you pick up a little bit of health. You can even come down to here. Then you come back and you damage, damage, damage. Then you're on this, and if you're doing ignite, you could go there. Or you could come down here, do block if you're a shield based. And then later, because you'll be piling down here, more than likely either go straight into strength or come down here towards this. Later you can hit these armor nodes and pick up your base armor once you have gear that then makes your gear awesome, because you're picking up nodes. Because if you multiply 25% more armor on 10 armor, it's obviously not going to really help. But if you pick up damage nodes, you're doing the damage. You don't have to do mechanics. You don't have to worry about health loss, and their HP is significant. Now, in saying that, there will become points where you damage, 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 and then you could either go straight ability, attribute tree, just whoosh, get a bunch of attributes depending on your damage, or you come to the least resistant paths and pick up nodes that come down around. But more than likely, if, say, knockback, most people won't care. Weapon swap, most people won't care. So there's not really a point. Crit strike, crit, stun recovery. So there's not really a point in going and picking up these extras. You might as well just pick up the dex in or strength nodes, because you've already picked up, I think it works out to be about 65 to 80% projectile damage just through going through there. And then the melee, you're picking up all this melee and then picking up some more, and then we're attribute running, maybe pick up one hand, two hand weapon, attribute running down, either cutting in here or coming over here, and then picking, well, pretty much mace. But once we get more options, you'd be picking either axe, mace, potentially flail, depending on how good that is when it comes in. You would have to then par in a more severe direction for that. And then you pick up your magnifiers for your ignites. There's even up here, you take these, and then you're doing the damage, multiplying with skills, constantly upgrading your skills, and then taking your armor nodes or your armor ES if you need it. Most of the time you won't need it unless you're struggling to find gear. Generally the gear will get you through unless you can't find that gear. So like life recovery from Flask. It's a nice node to have if it's an extra node. But more than likely, if you're needing to take all this for life recovery from Flask, then you're probably getting hit too much. And it's not the nodes that you've not taken, it's probably you're trying to face tank something you shouldn't. Picking up all this damage, blinding them so they can't hit you as well. Power charges as a monk, I wouldn't take this. That's a nice little thing. Recover 3% life on kill. That's a nice afterthought one where you reroute your tree, you pick up some on kill, so you're clearing, you're getting life at end game when you got 3% means something. Then you multiply it through other means. So yeah, damage, 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 damage. Just look for the damage nodes. Don't try to go, oh, I'll go fully defensive, because it won't work. The damage you will be lacking will come back to bite you versus the bosses. The only thing I will say is if you're in a group and one of you is choosing to be the tank, you would then take the armor nodes and try to build up your armor. And you're more than likely to be a warrior, so you can do the physical mitigation and then convert it through certain things on the tree that mitigate damage. There's a fire one somewhere here, and then there's a random element one over there. Then you take all the armor, and then your job is to not do damage. Then you could actually start taking the tanky nodes, because your friend would be the one doing all the damage, and they would take all the damage nodes. So that's the only reason why you should decide to go full defensive first. There's nothing wrong taking some early block, because increasing the block chance with a decent shield, if you're playing one-handed, can add up to around 60-64% if you take these three, all these, plus the gear. You can end up with 60-64% quite easy, but after you've taken all the damage nodes and stuff, so you can give them a good whack as well. But yeah, to pretty much sum it up, take damage nodes, ignore defense nodes early on. Only put gear on if it's got resistances and movement speed and life. Prioritize resistances on gear over life and movement speed over defense on boots. Always keep movement speed on your boots if you can. If you don't, you'll probably come in trouble. And don't specialize your build past what your skills are doing until later game. So if your skills are doing all fire, then more than likely your build base will be ignite, and then you pick up the ignite magnifiers and all that, and then do damage that way. Once you pass the campaign, you can become versatile, change up, convert, do all that. But stick to what your skills tell you to do. Boost your physical damage, because 90% of the skills are converting physical damage to X. So all you have to do is worry about what's my physical damage doing. If you want another element, make sure it's what the skill is doing, not some random element, because it won't help. It might look good on the weapon, the DPS of the weapon might be good, but your physical damage and whatever damage your skill is doing counts, nothing else. But hopefully that was helpful on how to actually attack the campaign, how to do the tree, what gear to focus on. None of the fancy dancy niche stuff, just straight do damage, get the kill, get through campaign, and then do your fancy dancy freestyle. Hopefully that was helpful. Goodbye, hit all those buttons, and I'll catch you next time.